This is paper trading. I do this for myself only. Um, and that uh, today was a very choppy day. Um, I was down about almost $600. Took the loss. Kind of what I was cool with. I was okay with that, so I knew what I was risking, and I took on that risk. Um, but I ended up making it back. Plus, like I was up like another $200, but I didn't take it uh, because it pulled back on me, which is okay. You're never gonna be perfect on your exits and entries. But let me refresh this page. Um, I'm gonna talk about the most important trade, and I'll go and talk about my first trade of the day. Uh, but I went in this stock. Uh, um, Shorted it. I went in when the market opened. I saw that it was spiking. I saw that it was being manipulated. The main thing. When I did my research on the stock, there wasn't too much. There wasn't too much that was said about if there was any offering. I seen a few things like the director's statements, but nothing really serious. Um, so as I was watching the market open, I was in another trade, but it wasn't moving, so kept my eyes on this. It was pulling back, and I can see it was being manipulated and being held up. And then they pushed it up, but then when they pushed it up, it wouldn't spike any higher, and it kept. You see how these all these doji candles? That's what was happening the whole time. Um, the yearly chart was choppy, but they had this big dump right here, or a bad open right here, whatever it is. Um, so just looking right here, I knew it was gonna be choppy, and looking right here, I can tell it wasn't really gonna go anywhere. But I'm like, it could be just watching it market open. I'm like, man, it could just come crashing down. Um, so it spiked. I can see that they were just dumping shares. They pulled it back, and then that's when I was like, okay, they're dumping shares. They're not letting it go any higher. So I started shorting, um, and I started shorting here. I shorted the first 300 shares just in case it was gonna just push up on me and get near high day or past high day. Then when I saw that, okay, it pushed up and it wouldn't go up any higher, I'm like, okay, let me short another 300 shares. Um, and then it came down. Um, I shorted another 300 shares right here after it pushed up, and then it came down and dropped. And on this bounce, I'm like, okay, it it or I think it was here, one of these candlesticks, but it hit the lower day and it just looked weak, and I added, and I was 1,000 shares at 720, and and I'm tempted to add here, but I'm like, man, this shit's so choppy, I'm not even gonna do it. I'm tempted to short again here. It might just fall down here, but I'm not gonna try it. But um, after I added, I'm like, okay, your size is getting pretty big. You gotta change your risk uh, point because originally I was risking high a day. Even with 600 shares, that was a $300 loss. That would have been a $300 risk but I was okay with it. 'Cause I'm like, it's 300. Then when I did the 500, when I did the 1,000 shares, it was a $500 risk. Um, and I wasn't okay with that. Well, I was okay with it, but I'm like, okay, I'm okay with it, but not completely. So let me change my risk. So so weird. There was a candlestick here that went up to 745. This chart's not updating properly. But there was a candlestick here that went up to 745. I don't know. This chart's just acting up. But I was like, okay, instead of 70, I'm gonna do 745, and then I'm like, um, it's not moving the way I want. Let me get. I got a bit more impatient. I'm like, all right, let me change it to my entry, which was like my entry. Or it was just either 745 or my entry. So as I'm trying to like enter the order, the stop limit order, and get it through, it broke through my entry, and then I'm like, shit. And then by the time I entered my stop limit order, it broke through my the 745 range, and I'm like, shit. So I just canceled it all, um, and I just switched it from a stop limit to a limit. And I'm like, all right, I got to get out at 770. And my order was sitting, and then it hit 770 and it executed. Um, it hit 770. I saw it. I clicked it, pulled back, and I got out at 770 for like a 500 and something dollar loss. Um, it's not my fault. I mean, I sized in and I was okay with the size. It's not my fault that it spiked. It's something that just happens. It's part of trading. Um, I went in pretty big, not pretty big, but I went in big, and um, I knew the risk that I was taking, and I was okay with it. So then afterwards, after I covered here, I saw that okay, it's not going to go any higher. Let me reshort, and I was trying to get 770 or higher, and I kept entering my order. Kept entering orders to get in. I'm not going to try to go over this, but I kept entering my orders, and it wouldn't let me. So I had to keep switching it and switching it because I'm like, nothing's going through. It's like they're not even letting any orders go through. So then I settled for less of 750, and I got in right here, and it just started pulling back, and it just kept pulling back. The whole time, I was experiencing many emotions as it was pulling back. I was experiencing like, okay, taking a risk of another $20 or 20 cents, which is another $200 loss. I was afraid of that. I'm like, man, I don't want to make this a whole big losing day. And then I went from Sunny, okay, you got to cover and take a smaller loss, um, instead of a bigger loss. If not, take just instead of $500 loss, take a $300 loss. And then I'm like, as it's pulling back here, I'm like, okay, you can take a lesser loss here, and it's battling to get down, and I'm like, just take the $300 loss, you'll be okay. And I'm like, if you challenge it, it's gonna break past your entry, and it's gonna go up, and you know when uh, it spikes fast, and you're gonna take a really big loss. And all these thoughts and emotions are running through my mind, and I'm evaluating every single thing, and I realized fear was taking over. Um, I was in fear of losing, and the fear of not missing out if it goes down the way I want. It was so many things, but I had to keep evaluating. After watching uh, uh, Rodden, Rodell Howell and Clay Trader, they were just they were just like, you gotta evaluate yourself. You gotta focus on yourself. And even Tim Grittani in the video I was watching yesterday about psychology at the conference, he was saying the same thing. It's a battle. Number one thing is a battle with yourself. You gotta be in tune with yourself. You gotta control yourself. So the whole time I'm just mentally evaluating myself. What am I thinking right now? How do I feel? I'm emotional. I'm about to make so many decisions, and I'm like, okay, what are you gonna do with all these emotions? And I'm like, I'm feeling all this stuff, but I'm gonna make a decision. And I said, okay, I'm gonna make a decision, and I'm gonna cut if it hits over 50, but I'm gonna let this ride. And I had my limit order at 750, and I'm like already like having it sit right here, ready to execute, ready to click this button, and I'm just watching it like a fucking hawk. And I'm watching and I'm watching, and it broke down. Same thing here. I'm like, okay, good. I'm like breathing and shit, and caught my breath a little bit, and I'm like, okay, I gotta change my risk. Okay, if it breaks past 725, it's consolidating here. If it breaks past 725, I'm gonna hit. And like, and then I'm battling myself. Just take the smaller loss. Just you should be glad that you're taking this smaller loss than a bigger loss than originally. You should be grateful. Da da da. And there's just so many emotions and thoughts. And I'm like, I'm not gonna listen to none of that. I'm gonna evaluate it, and I'm just gonna make a decision, and I'm gonna stick to my decision. And I changed my 750 to 725, and I'm watching it like a hawk again. And then it broke down again, and I'm like, you know what? Let's keep watching it, see if it's gonna break down some more. And it broke down from. I was challenging it to go past $7, and it went past $7. But I'm like, okay, it went past $7, but it has to go past $6.93, and I had my order at. I had a stop limit this time at $7 to $7.05. Um, and I had a stop limit order for it this time because I'm like, it's too much for me to watch it like a hawk and be ready to click a button. So I'm just like letting it sit, and it's downtrending, and it went to 767, and I was up like almost $300. And I didn't take it honestly because I'm like, let's see if it's gonna continue to drop some more. But I kept reminding myself throughout this whole time from here to here that it's a choppy stock. Um, take it when it's down because it's not gonna go the way you want. Take it while it's down. And honestly, I was like, man, I was battling so much that I was kind of like being overwhelmed, but I was keeping up with myself. And I didn't exit right here, and I ended up exiting at $7 flat when it hit my stop limit order, and my only gain was $25, which is I'm completely okay with. Um, was this a disciplined trade, an undisciplined trade? A little bit. Did I make any mistakes? The adding I was okay with. Um, the adding I was okay with. Um, the loss I was a little bit okay with, but I understood. Okay, this is a possibility. I'm okay with losing. I'm not completely okay with losing 500, but I try to change it, and I won't say I oversized for sure. I won't say I oversized at all. Um, and I was only using like $8,000 of my account of this account, so it definitely wasn't oversizing. Um, and I believe I did everything right. So I would say this is a good trade overall, as far as just making decisions and evaluation. But I got out at 7, right here, somewhere around no, right here at 7 when it bounced up right here. Was tempted to short here. Said fuck it, I don't want to do it. It's a choppy stock, and as you can see, it's a choppy stock. It could just choppy its way all the way down, but I'm not fucking with it. Honestly, I'm not. I don't want to. I don't like choppy stocks, although I'm pretty decent at trading choppy stocks, but not today. Now for my other trade, this stock when I did my when I looked up the SEC filings, this stock had a lot of manipulation. I mean, like directors. I still need to learn how to read the directors, the SC13, but the SC13 directors, there was a lot of them. There was a 424B, and the only difference is the I don't know why my internet's not working, but the 8K, not the 8K, the 10Q quarterly report, uh, it showed me their offering, their outstanding from last year to this year. Um, it was the difference was like the difference was like not much at all. So it was like okay, they did dump shares before, but not too much. But they had like a big offering, I think it was still active at the time that I looked at it, and they just had a lot of shit. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait. It was around like eight something. Um, it was around like 8:30. I think I was watching this shit, and so this is 9:40. This is nine o'clock. So I started watching it around like 8:30. I think, yeah, 8:30. Um, and it was consolidating. I looked at the past history. Consolidation is not going nowhere. Choppiness, consolidation. I'm like, okay, but it had this big drop. So based off of the 8K and the 10Q, they did a merge, and then they did a 10Q. And I looked at the 10Q. I'm like, this could be one of those mergers that just drops because sometimes when you have a merge, they dump shares, and other times they just it's just a merge. Um, but uh, this time it didn't go nowhere. This was one of those ones that just didn't go nowhere. Um, After like getting in, I'm like, or before I got in, I'm like, this is one of those that might not go anywhere. But they already like kind of like dumped some here. But I started shorting this, and I was shorting this, and I was my risk was 996. I mean 946 right here, and I started shorting. Then I started adding, and I'm like, okay, let's make this a good one. Or I won't say let's make this a good one, but let's size it in pretty nicely because it's staying above this level. This might be support, but they might just start dumping because they have a lot of manipulation here. So I just kept adding, and I changed my risk from 946 to I think what 925. Um, I saw that it wasn't breaking past 25. It went to 22, 922, but it wouldn't go past 925. So I entered the stop limit order at from 925 to 930, and it wouldn't even move. It wouldn't even budge. I was up the highest $80 to $60 at this point, and I just like as I'm trading this and watching this one, I just got out for a $30 loss. So all in all, I took a $5 loss for the day, and I'm okay with that.